Okay, hello everybody. We are now starting our webinar on multi-channel and omni-channel innovations that are changing the future of distribution for companies. The webinar will be presented by our CEO, Krish. So I'll quickly present him to you. So he is the CEO of SDI Group. Nathan joined SDI in 2000, and his wide range of experience has allowed him to work directly with clients, analyzing existing characteristics, providing global engineering solutions. As a United Kingdom native, Nathan has led consultancy and implementation projects in diverse industries such as retail, fashion, logistics, and consumer goods. So, Krish, whenever you're ready.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for taking the time to be with us. Lucy, as the moderator, did I understand we're going to have a poll to start the presentation?
Oh, okay, yeah, sure. We'll start with that. So the first poll is to see how much you know about Omnichannel. Is it something that you know a little bit about, a lot about, or nothing about? So please let us know so that we can focus the rest of the webinar. We'll give you a few seconds more to answer the question.
Okay, that's great information. I think we're still
yeah, there's still a few people answering. So for those that haven't answered, you can still answer and give us your information. Okay, so we'll just close it and I'll show you the results.
So look, good results though. It's interesting. Not very few, obviously, there with a lot, but certainly the vast majority of people somewhere between a little and nothing. So that's interesting to note, and I will certainly in the first few slides here I'll try and cover and take away that mystique between the different phrases that you hear around omni-channel and multi-channel, and I think it will become clear in the first few slides of this presentation. That's the objective here. So.
Okay, so I'll just take it down and we can go along with the presentation.
Okay. Okay, great. So this screen's come back now. Good. Okay, good morning, everybody. So as I said, I'm going to try and tailor this presentation to the audience. Over 80% of you I responded there that you have sort of little to no understanding of the phrases multi-channel, omni-channel. So we'll start by trying to get rid of that that mystique. There's nothing magic about it, and we'll then move on to explaining those different disciplines and some of the technologies in the space that are changing the way that companies do business and making companies more efficient. So just to summarize about SDI, and thank you to SDI Columbia for putting this presentation together. Thank you all of you for attending. Appreciate your time. So SDI are a business that's focused on the distribution and design of the entire supply chain. The automation that we provide is primarily focused within the four walls of the distribution center. But in basic terms, we are engineers, and we use our industry knowledge and creativity and analytical skills to deliver world-class solutions to the clients that we work with. And we do that on a global basis, and we learn different disciplines and different positives and negatives from all over the world, and we're able to bring that experience back to the to local markets and apply world-class technologies in a local environment and make them appropriate for local businesses. So thanks to SDI Columbia for putting this together, and thank you all for taking part. Just a little bit more background on myself. I came from education in terms of engineering. I have an industrial engineering background and degree, and I then moved into the design of special purpose automated machinery in England, which back in the 80s, which I think now has become very popular in terms of robotics. It was really industrial machinery and automating processes and improving the efficiency of processes for a whole different variety of industries. I've lived in the US since 2000, and I now run our global organization, and again we are entirely focused on delivering efficient solutions in a cost-effective manner, and so that's what we do. So let's talk about omnichannel. The word omnichannel is really, it's been evolving. Started as multi-channel, and then people felt that wasn't, multi didn't represent enough different disciplines. But in simple terms, it is the consumer. It's the voice and the consumer's ability to become the driving force. So the consumer is the person that pulls the strings and is the person that drives the sale. And so the businesses, the traditional sales channels that we as a business, and we as people that work in the distribution and supply chain industry, the traditional channels that we recognize are becoming very blended. And so the blending of those different channels leads to the multi-channel, omni-channel description. But in very simple terms, my personal definition is that it is the ability to buy something anywhere and receive it anywhere at your convenience as a consumer. So that means if you want to go into a store and buy it and take it away with you, you can do that. If you want to buy it online and have it delivered to your door, you can do that. If you want to buy it online and pick it up in the store, you can do that. If you want to buy it in the store and have it delivered to your door, you should be able to do that. So it's really the blending of all of those types of channel, and how and the things that we're going to talk about today are how do they make the distribution center and the supply chain more complex, and what impact do they have on the businesses that we operate. In traditional terms, those channels are wholesale, manufacture, retail, and e-commerce. So to explain those traditional channels a little bit more and talk about some examples and specific examples in terms of businesses that we would all recognize, global businesses that take up these positions in the marketplace. So you can see this these traditional sales channels as different disciplines, and if we consider this circle of the Venn diagram, the manufacturing. So this is the traditional manufacturer, the person that puts garments or products, assembles, molds, producers. This is the real actual production marketplace. So we see people, you know, like Apple, for example, or many major Chinese manufacturers that manufacture garments. We see these people in this space, and in their traditional model, they would sell through to a wholesale person that would represent garment manufacturers or manufacturers, and the wholesaler would then go to a retail or an e-commerce channel and present these goods. So this is our manufacturing discipline. Manufacturing and wholesale, really, because wholesale became a representative of the manufacturer. We then have the traditional retail provider. I think everybody's pretty familiar with those types of people. The types of organization that you would see in here, if you walk around any high street store, or any high street shopping mall, it's the types of people that you would see in that shopping mall. So H&M, Forever 21, Apple is another great example. You can go out and what we call in the US traditional brick and mortar, i.e. they have a store in a location. You can walk in a store and you can search around and see something and buy something. So that's our what we would consider our traditional retail model. And then we have our e-commerce businesses. Obviously, the biggest pure e-commerce person that's now beginning to think about stores, interestingly, is Amazon. But there's many other businesses in that space. And in the US marketplace at the moment, there is a big wave of a blend of e-commerce businesses that do rental. So they're not really specific direct-to-consumer sales channels. They're direct-to-consumer availability channels, so that they make merchandise available to you at your pleasure and when you want it. And then when you're finished with it, you send it back to them, and they handle the laundry and the cleaning, and then they make it available to somebody else. But that's another wave of the whole sharing economy that's coming up. But what's interesting to our business is that we have seen these channels overlapping vastly in the last several years. In 20 years ago, there were many organizations that just focused on manufacture, many organizations that only had stores, not so many organizations that were just in e-commerce. But the advent of modern technology, iPhone technology, mobile technology, access to the internet has meant that this garment manufacturer now can, if they can have their products seen directly online by somebody, then they can sell it directly. So they can bypass this channel and make themselves additional margin. So they become a in that example, they become a garment manufacturer and an e-commerce seller. And perhaps they might think to themselves, well, we can sell direct to consumers. Our consumer wants our product directly, so maybe we should get some stores as well. So then what happens is they move into this segment here. So they're a manufacturer and they also have some stores. And really, in today's world, many of the successful what you might consider retail giants, but retailing giants are all playing in this central area where they will make that product available through any one of these channels. And there are people that are still that recognize that this or this is their space, and they don't want to move across into that, and that's that may be their strategy. But the challenges that we face in the supply chain and distribution business are when a retail business decides it wants to become a manufacturing business and move into this sector, and then they also decide that they'd like to make their products available online, and so they become into this central segment. And this central segment really is the operating of 3 different businesses, and so the challenges that that business faces are increased and enhanced because of the different complexities of the different types of business that they're involved in. And you see many of the very successful businesses globally in this space here. Probably some of the most notable examples: H&M, Forever 21, and then of course, interestingly, somebody like Amazon announced recently that they were going to open bookstores, brick and mortar stores, and probably the most outside of the apparel space, Apple is probably one of those leading organizations directly in this space. When you think of Apple, you think that you can purchase that product anywhere you want it. You go to a store. You don't want to go to a store, order it online, and they are what was also been termed a vertically integrated manufacturer. They control this manufacturing space. Just give myself a little break there and just remind everybody on the call that there is a forum for asking questions. So would welcome questions to be submitted through the forum throughout my conversations, and we have a section at the end where we ask and answer those questions to the best of our ability. Okay, so as I said at the beginning, SDI is a business that's very focused on this multi-channel space, and this is data that I put together that summarizes what we're seeing from our customer base and where their challenges are. And the interesting thing from this is that their challenges vary depending on where they are currently in their life cycle of their organization. So if they are a large denim manufacturer that perhaps is very well recognized as a manufacturer, the challenges that they're facing might be opening stores, and how do they integrate the new stores and the distribution of merchandise to those stores instead of to those wholesale customers. How do they integrate that into their supply chain? The biggest challenge that most of these the traditional people are facing, and even the people that own the e-commerce space and have a laser focus just on e-commerce and solely focused on that channel, the ability for people to buy online and the percentage growth of e-commerce sales we're seeing from our customer base, 250 or more % over the next 3 to 5 years. Now, I have to put that in context, because in the earlier slide I showed, where I showed the small segment of a pie, that could still represent a relatively small percentage of your overall sales. As you see here, if you're a retail organization with lots of brick and mortar stores, even though e-commerce is growing at a significant rate, it may only represent 10% of your business. So it often becomes, it's considered the tail that wags the dog is the American phrase that you hear a lot, in that it's a small percentage of the business, but it's a very difficult percentage, and it's a very customer-focused percentage. So if you're a retail organization or a garment manufacturing or manufacturing organization, you may find that even the e-commerce is it's a big driving force in your challenges, but it's still got to be considered only 15 or 20% of your overall sales. If you are 100% focused on e-commerce, then your growth is still accelerating fast, and that will be you're growing at 200% across the whole organization, perhaps. So you have to really deal with the dramatic growth that you will face, and that dramatic growth takes you from maybe several hundred orders in a day very, very quickly to thousands and thousands, and that increase in challenge in your distribution and supply chain space is what we're faced with trying to address for our customers. So the challenges that we see these changes in business drive: greater speed or velocity. The consumer wants that product once they've ordered it online, and even if they haven't ordered it online, if they've ordered it in store, they want it then. They want that instant gratification. You're seeing 24-hour delivery is very commonplace in the USA. We are beginning to see in Europe same-day delivery, and we're also beginning to see the type of activity where people have the brick and mortar stores and they're really beginning to use them as a showroom. So somebody goes into the store, they look at the product, they try it on, they decide that they like it, they like the functionality, they like whatever's about, but they don't want to carry it around with them. So they want it delivered when they get home. So at 2 or 3 o'clock that afternoon, they would like it delivered straight to them. So that speed and frequency is a massive change from the traditional batch manufacture type of environment that maybe that manufacturing company is used to. More SKUs. So the availability of this online product means that I don't have to carry it on a shelf, in a back room, in a stock keeping unit. There's no fee for carrying more SKUs. Therefore, there ends up being a huge increase in SKU base with a very long tail. By a long tail, we mean that the businesses don't want to discontinue a SKU because somebody might come online and order it, and the cost of carrying that product is certainly lower than carrying it in a brick and mortar store, in a warehouse, very high in a shelf somewhere in the middle of nowhere where land is cheap or space is cheaper. There's a lot less cost associated with carrying that product. So the growth of the SKU base is dramatic. So we see businesses growing from thousands of SKUs, 10, 15,000 SKUs, to hundreds and hundreds of thousands of SKUs. We were engaged in a project last year, designing a facility that anticipates it will have a major high street retailer in the USA, by the way, that anticipates they will have a distribution center carrying up to 1 million SKUs. Growth of volume, we talked about that, the increase in volume, and also the increase in volume associated with the peaks and valleys of the e-commerce channel. We have I think a lot of people are familiar with the day that we call Black Friday in the USA, a big shopping day. Well, the biggest day of the year this year for most of our retail clients was Cyber Monday. So that was the spike in volume. Was Cyber Monday was the biggest day, and that week of the year was critical to their overall success for the year. And what we see in the e-commerce space and that online space is the peak of volume can be as high as 10 to 1. In the retail space, in a brick and mortar space, typically a peak might be 3 or 4 to 1. So at Christmas they sell 3 times as much as they sell during a slow season. In an internet spike, we will see up to 10 times or more of the peak to average volume, which places a huge demand on the DC space. New competition, always evolving. One man and a computer can set up a business. Disruptive technologies, all the time evolving, all the time new technologies, making it easier, making it more simple to connect with consumers, and forever challenging the traditional businesses, or what have become traditional businesses, in that space. So disruptive technologies. Best example, again from the US, is Uber and the taxi world. Three years ago, didn't exist. Today, multi-billion-dollar organization that have destroyed the taxi business in the USA. And you find that across the board. Talked about some of the sharing economies and sharing businesses. We're seeing many businesses that are offering different ways to access product that somebody else hasn't thought of, and that challenges traditional businesses. The challenge of returns. The traditional model for an e-commerce sale was a sale where you ordered two of the same thing in different sizes, and you always sent one back. You weren't sure, did the small fit or the medium fit? So you ordered the small and the medium, and sent the medium back, or sent the small back, whichever one was right for you. Which meant you ordered 2 items, you sent one back, 50% returns. So as the increase in outbound product evolves in that space, the challenges and the expectations on the return process increase at that same pace. And the percentage of returns in the e-commerce business is overall, I would say, against the traditional catalog business, it's down, but it's still a big challenge, and it's still in the somewhere between 10 and 35%, depending on the type of business you are. And number 6, the consumer voice. In a retail world, if you shipped to a wholesaler or a retail client, they often did assumed receipts, and it wasn't actually the person that received the box into the distribution center or received the box into the store. They weren't actually buying that product. They were going to resell it, so they paid less attention to it. If we as consumers order a small red T-shirt and a medium yellow shows up, you get a complaint. So the ability for the consumer to go directly to the person that's provided the product with a voice, with a blog, with an online comment, has meant a huge requirement for accuracy and speed, and doing what you say you will do and getting it right, because the consumer's voice can be seen by every single one of your consumers at any blog online at any time. So those are the challenges that we all sit here and try and face as we face this omni-channel world. What we're going to talk through in the next step of the presentation, in the next part of the presentation, is 10 automation and innovative ideas and technologies that are changing the space that we operate in. And but I wanted to preface that by talking a little bit about innovations, because these are the things that catch the headlines and that often that really drive us. Now, the interesting thing is, we hear a lot of innovations, a lot of headlines, a lot of automation and technology, but most of us are here. Most of our technology is traditional. I don't want to call it antiquated because it's traditional. It does a job. So this is where most of us are. We're in the pallet and carton handling space. We hear about all of these technologies. We hear about drones and robots delivering and all of these very, very clever things. But the reality is that the industry that we operate in is somewhere in this space here, between here and here. I don't know a single company in the world that's actually delivering product with a drone or actually doing anything in the distribution space really utilizing drones. They are a great, they make headlines, but what we're here to talk about is the reality of running a business and actually distributing product and in the real world getting things done. So I think this is a good break point to ask a question of the audience. This is a midpoint in the presentation. So I'll hand it back to Lucy for a few seconds to offer that poll.
Okay, thank you, Krish. So the next poll we're going to do is to know if you're using automation. So this question is multiple answers, so you can, if you use different technologies, you can select different ones. So we have conveyor systems, pick or put to light, carton or unit sortation, another technology that's not mentioned on this list, or you don't have any automation. So again, we'll give you a moment to answer these questions. Thank you very much. Also, to remind you, if you have any questions, you can ask them in the question section, and we'll be answering them at the end of the webinar. Okay, so I'm just going to close the poll, and we'll show you the results. Krish, if you want to.
Very. So look at that, very, very interesting. With I think that's 90% almost of people having some kind of conveyor system or put pick-to-light system. Huge percentages, very, very, very interesting, meaning that people have invested in technology and have taken the step forward from the picture of the pallets on stacks that I showed. I guess it's 26% of people there with nothing and 30% with other technology, but very, very interesting in results. I think people will find the next 10 slides, and there's one on each technology, and I'll just venture into those at a relatively high level. And as we've said, there's an opportunity to post questions at the end as the conference moves forward. So keep posting those questions. The other thing that I would add, we specifically tried to remove videos from the webinar presentation because sometimes the internet bandwidth and speed doesn't allow the ease of showing of videos. But on every single one of these next 10 slides, there is video collateral and video information available. And if you would like to get a link to that or specific videos, then please request that of Lucy and the moderators, and we'll provide that. So we do have a lot of video collateral, which really puts into pictures a lot of the words I'm trying to convey. It's a lot easier to show a video and actually see something in action. Okay, so thank you for your feedback.
I'll give you back your screen. There you go.
Okay, I think let's see. Okay, great. Okay, so we're going to, at a relatively high level, go through 10 technological solutions that are applied in the multi-channel warehousing and distribution space. I have 1 or 2 slides on each one of these technologies. It's about 10 or 11 slides more. So just to keep you an idea of the timing. Okay, so just real quickly, we're going to talk about warehouse execution systems, flat sortation techniques, hanging sortation, storage and retrieval, pouch and pocket sortation, some software algorithms that are being used to sort and resort items using very powerful software. Put wall technology, I will cover that briefly. Flex and motor-driven roller conveyor, which is the abbreviation MDR, and then a quick slide on pack stations, and then we'll be ready for questions. Okay, so warehouse execution systems, WES or WCS Plus, as they're often called. This is a movement of the software. So the traditional model for software was you ran a warehouse, you had a warehouse management system, and if you had some automation in it, you had a warehouse control system. The warehouse control system handled the automation, the warehouse management system handled the inventory control. And as warehousing and distribution professionals, we often were challenged with integrating these software packages together. As we all know, as we have different software providers and different software packages, the integration of those, getting those packages to talk to each other, is one of the biggest challenges that we face. They usually work well in a vacuum one way or the other, but having them integrate together is the ongoing challenge. So the industry responded to that, and in the automation space, the industry has developed, and SDI has developed, software that allows the automation provider to provide all of the functionality and all of the expectations of a inventory management system. So now a single system can receive product, can put it away, can tick it and do value-added services to it, and it can communicate in a real-time environment with the warehousing and automation, with the automation equipment. The automation equipment was always a very good system for, it needed real-time decisions, it needed instantaneous decisions, it needed to scan a barcode and make an immediate response. The warehouse management solution was very good at recording and very good at reporting and very good at large-scale big data management, but the flexibility and the speed was required by the warehouse control system. So SDI and a number of other solution providers have been developing their software platform to offer an integrated solution that can handle the speed of automation and the disciplines and the rigor of a warehouse management system. And those systems are called warehouse execution systems. The system that SDI has developed is called DCMS, Distribution Center Management System, and it's and in summary, it's a technology solution that incorporates all the features of a WMS and the real-time attributes of a WCS. Put a few notes in terms of why was it developed. The access to programmers, it's a .NET program. The access to programmers coming out of university and the ease of programming now has meant that organizations such as SDI can develop this very quickly, very flexibly, and offer it to customers. And the integration between between the inventory management and the automation equipment goes away because it's all in one platform. So all of the interfaces are already written, are already predefined. They've been done before. So as a consumer, you are not exposed to multiple organizations trying to communicate with each other, and often in a struggle to determine who takes control of a situation or who understands it the best. So you're dealing with one provider, again, sort of the Americanism that we use, one throat to choke. You as a consumer, you don't want to have to try and integrate those software packages together. So that's what the warehouse execution system model is doing. It's making it easier and easier to implement automation without disrupting your business. So, item fulfillment, flat item fulfillment. We have many different flavors of flat item fulfillment, and I've just picked the three primary industry stellars, the industry benchmarks. And SDI plays in all of these spaces. The traditional apparel, the traditional space for a Bombay sortation, it's known as a Bombay sorter because the product is placed on a tray, and the tray opens like an aeroplane bomber. When the trap doors opened from that aeroplane, the whatever was in the aeroplane came straight out and straight down, and so hence the Bombay tray. As you can imagine, you don't really want to do this with cups or china. There's something fragile, so hence its flexibility is a little challenged because it can't handle some of the fragile product. We then have tilt tray sorters, where the product is placed onto the top of a tray, and instead of the tray opening and the product falling, the product is tilted off. Now, the development of cross belts was to address the even further handling of fragile items. The tilt tray is, both the Bombay and the tilt tray, any of these sorters, are moving at a linear speed. So as you eject product off the tray, either from the Bombay or you tip it off from a tilt tray, it's moving, and so it has some momentum, and so it can still be damaged in some way. Perhaps if you have a pair of a shoebox with a very, with the lid on the traditional lid, not the clamshell lid, traditional shoebox lid, you don't want that lid to come off when it's tipped off or dropped off the tray. So the cross belt was really developed for very specific applications of fragile handling. The best example is really shoe boxes that it handles, and instead of being tipped off the belt, tipped off the tray, the item is driven in a controlled manner off the belt and into a chute or into another conveyor. So each of them does, in many ways, each of them does the job. The speeds vary, the configuration abilities vary based on manufacturer. In terms of the investment profile, the least cost investment is the Bombay sortation solution. It has the least flexibility from a variety of product, and the most investment is the cross belt, which has the most flexibility, as you'd expect. So these solutions are used for assembling orders and delivering product to particular chutes and destinations. Often not talked about too much these days is the hanging garment sortation. A lot of US businesses, because of the price of transportation, are delivering items to stores in a carton, in flat, as we call it, in a box. But you'd probably be surprised to know that many of those garments are handled in a hanging format inside of the DC. And so there are a tremendous variety of hanging sortation solutions, and this is a system manufactured by SDI, which takes individual garments on hangers, places them onto these hooks automatically, and then these hooks can be delivered directly to a store line or an order line where they can be packed into a carton. And many specialty retailers and retailers that are very conscious of the garment looking well in the store and being presented nicely, they don't want to fold it. They don't want that garment to have a crease in it when it arrives at the store. And actually, the amount of flexibility and the overall investment in a hanging garment solution is compared for unit level sortation, hanging garment sortation is the least cost investment. It's a very flexible, can be highly automated because you're handling the garments in a nice controlled environment because you have them in a hanger, can be highly automated and with a relatively low level investment. So it's used widely, in my opinion not widely enough, a highly flexible solution out there that's often forgotten. Advances in storage and retrieval. We've seen primarily driven out of the German and European continent, and you have to understand why. Driven because of the cost of land. So they have developed highly automated solutions for taking cartons and pallets and placing them very high up in the air, and making them available back to ground level out on the conveyor automatically. So these are devices that that will travel many meters and automatically pick up a pallet or a carton and bring it back down to a conveyor so that it can be then used in the DC, and another conveyor often brings the carton or the pallet and puts it back away. So the development of these was primarily driven by the cost of land, secondly the cost of labor, and it started with systems that would store and retrieve a pallet, then moved into systems that would store and retrieve a carton, one at a time. And so the speed of these here was highly challenged, and in the warehousing and distribution space, you didn't see a huge adoption of this technology because of the speed. It's very applicable, but the speed challenged it. We then moved to multi-level systems where we would combine a device that went up and down a rack with a device that went into the rack. So it was one of the devices went and got the carton, delivered it to a crane at the front, and the crane at the front would deliver it down. So those increased speed. That was what we called multi-level systems. And now almost all of the high-speed automation in storage and retrieval is done by technology that's known as shuttles. Again, a number of manufacturers of this same technology, and a shuttle, to all intensive purposes, is a automated storage and retrieval device. Instead of having a crane that goes up and down the different levels, a shuttle traverses a single level, which makes it very fast because it's dedicated to that level. So you have a storage and retrieval device for each level of your storage media. So very widely applied, especially in Europe, with the cost of land is high. They can go very tall because you don't have to. These are unmanned vehicles, so there's no problem with sending one of these 30 meters into the air, whereas you might not want to do that with a person. So they can be operated lights out, so the demands on energy are often low as well. They're used for delivery to fulfillment stations, goods to sorter, for example. You might use this technology to deliver cartons to a tilt tray or to a Bombay sorter, or you might use this technology to deliver cartons to a what we call a goods to man, which is a fulfillment station where somebody takes that carton, opens it, and does some order fulfillment. So there's been tremendous advances, and as with anything, as you get more saturated and proliferation of technology, the price comes down. So these have become more and more competitive over the last 3-4 years. This is a technology that SDI is very active in. It's become a new groundbreaking, very, very exciting and fast-moving technology, both in Europe and the US. There's been 2 significant implementations of this technology in the US in the last 12 months. And in Europe, some of the most significant investments in automation technology have been with this technology. So this is really becoming a groundbreaking, it's already a groundbreaking technology and is becoming to take hold of the industry. It's called a pocket or a pouch. The SDI solution for this is called Joey. That's our trademark name for it. And this is a technology that allows you to do automated order fulfillment and order assembly. To all intensive purposes, it looks like a hanging garment solution. Consider each one of these pouches or pockets a carrier, and in each one of these pouches or pockets is a item that's going to go out to a consumer. Just one single item: pair of shoes, T-shirt, piece of electronics. They're inducted into the pouch using these tables, just like you would induct into a light system or onto a tilt tray. They're just placed into a bag. This is the bag or the pouch. That can then be handled on a variety of technology that allows it to move up into the roof much higher. Can be highly automated, is highly automated, and the next time that unit or those units get touched is at packing. So they can be accumulated, they can be sorted, they can be sequenced, and we'll talk about sequencing in the next couple of slides actually. And using these solutions with sequencing gives an extremely powerful and highly automated solution, and can be very competitive as well from an overall investment perspective. Doesn't have to be such a major investment because the technology can be utilized to do very clever things. So this basically consists of 3 steps: inducting the item into a bag or a pouch, handling the pouch, i.e. sorting it, routing it, getting it sequenced in an order sequence, and then sending it to a pack station and taking the items out and packing it. Huge opportunities in this and very exciting technology. So I talked about sequencing, and there's two approaches that SDI have taken in the last 24 months with sequencing. I'm going to cover them pretty quickly. I tried to show them in terms of very simple demonstrations so that people can understand how it's applied. So my most simple version of this was if you took the double sort technique. If you took a deck of cards and you wanted to sort them into by suit 1 through 11. How would you do that? So if you wanted to do it in the most efficient manner for yourself, the first thing that you would do is you would sort those cards into 4 piles. So you'd sort them into the hearts, you'd sort them into the diamonds, the clubs, and the spades. So this would be what we would call in an automation world the pre-sort or primary sort. So we just sort them into some kind of pre-group. Hearts, diamonds, spades, clubs. So now if I wanted to sort them into an exact sequence, these obviously are not in a sequence. We couldn't do that with just that 4-way sort. We could then do each one of these piles separately, one after another. And so the first one of those piles would look like this. So once I moved it from the pile of hearts, and I had 13 destinations on the floor. I had 13 places I could put cards. I could put them in a sequence now, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so forth. So you should consider these cards perhaps items in an order that need to be got together, that need to be sent together. The 1, 2, and the 3 go to Mrs. Jones, and the 4, 5, and the 6 go to somebody else. So consider those cards orders. So you're basically using the automation technology to do 2 passes, and we often would do those over the same piece of automated equipment. That equipment would be utilized twice to do different jobs. It might be used the first time to do the primary sort and then the secondary time to do the secondary sort. But what you're doing is you're utilizing the technology and you're getting the most out of it, because it might be that the volume is not significantly high enough to demand that automation, but the complexity of the sorting is high enough to demand that automation. So as long as you can utilize the automation multiple times, you then begin to get utilization and an ROI out of it. So that's what we call double sortation. And again, there are videos of these available. I remind everybody to ask that. So this next one is a very complicated software technique. I've tried to, I used this simple number puzzle to demonstrate how it is applied, because it can be applied in many, many different ways. But the point is that we have 4 rows and 4 columns, but we have, in this instance, we have 15 tiles. So I hope we would all agree that we wouldn't do it in the first 2-3 minutes, but we could get these tiles sequenced into any sequence that we wanted them sequenced into. So if we wanted the 1 in this corner, we would have to move things around, but eventually we could get the 1 in this corner. If we then wanted the 2 here, we could do the same thing, and 3 and so forth. So this sequencing puzzle is how we apply multiple sorters to give us a high volume of tiles being sorted with low volume of sort destinations. So with 4 rows and 4 columns, I can sort 16 items into any sequence that we like. Now, of course, 16 items doesn't help us very much in the distribution world that we deal in, but as you scale that, the maths becomes it's a mathematical problem. So if this was 10 by 10, I now have 100 possibilities, and so forth. So as you scale these approaches up, the ability to handle thousands and thousands of orders becomes very manageable with relatively low levels of automation investment. So highly complex software. reduces the number of sort destinations, which means overall reduces the level of investment required, and also overall reduces the level of the number of sort destinations, which means it reduces the overall investment, which is good news. So you get high complexity by investing in software and not so much in hardware. So that's matrix sortation. A lot of you talked about, a lot of you showed that you have put or pick-to-light systems, and these order fulfillment solutions are very, very prevalent. SDI has a complete portfolio in this area. I call them directed solutions. They're operated with RF guns, voice, lights, and often a combination of those. And in simple terms, an operator is given a unit or an item. They scan that unit, and then a light is illuminated that tells the operator to do something. Usually, put or take an item from this shelving location. We use both coloured displays, red, green, orange displays, and also alphanumeric displays that will allow you to display more information than just yes or no in a green red light situation. But these are lowest overall investment, very flexible solutions. They do rely on labor, so they can be subject to lower accuracy than the higher automated solutions, and larger training curves as you try to handle peaks associated with this e-commerce challenge. Bringing people in and training them on taking an item and putting it onto a tray or putting it into a bag is a lot easier than taking an item and scanning it and then understanding what the different light messages mean. So the training curve is often a big driver for people to move from this technology to the more automated technology, where you can't spend that time training people and getting them up to speed, or you can't accept the number of errors that perhaps are occurring in that space. But widely recognized solutions, highly flexible, lowest overall cost, and offer a great platform to move into the automation space. MDR conveyor, motor-driven roller conveyor. This is a number of manufacturers of this. This is it's a 24-volt technology that's very flexible in that it can be. It's really the new plug and play, and so this conveyor can be utilized to deliver items to put walls, deliver them to unit sorters. It can be used for sequencing, can be used for automatic takeaway. And the key to it is that increase in manufacturers, the people that manufacture these rollers and the intelligence that go with them, as the increase in sales has gone up, the cost comes down, and as the cost comes down, increase in sales goes up. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, and the flywheel is turning, and the momentum has swung to these types of conveyor technology being implemented very, very effectively within the DC space, not just for moving from point A to point B, but for clever things like sequencing. And the idea of this video is to show that. So I'm going to press play on this video and let it play for just a few minutes. So you can see there from that video, highly flexible. Each one of these cubes, consider it a cube in that little puzzle that we all had as children. It can go, it can move a product left, it can move a product, left or right or up and down. So it can be moved anywhere. So you put together 4 of these 16 little cubes, and we can move products in any sequence in and out of that area. So high flexibility, as you've seen there, very high reconfigurability. And if I want to tell this, I can actually give this an address and say, today I want you to divert left. Okay, well now some circumstances change. Now I want you to divert right. So it gives huge amounts of flexibility. Very exciting technology, and we're utilizing it a lot in the US in a variety of ways in solutions. And finally, pack stations. The pack station is often just a table. Lot of investment in ergonomics in the process of getting the product from its order level. So it's been delivered to a pack station in order level by either manual picking or by some level of automation. But now it has to be placed in the mail envelope. It has to be placed in a box. It has to be wrapped. Has to be invoice has to be placed in, and that we are a long away from automating that process, that step in the overall process, and it's often the most labor-intensive piece of the pie. And so we are investing with many of our customers in highly configured pack stations that make all of the services and all of the things that this operator might need to do available to them without moving away. The automotive industry has been doing this for years and years. They take an operation that might take 15 seconds, and they will work to take a second out of that operation, to make it 14 seconds, and the next year they'll try and make it 13, and they do that by availability of what's required, by taking part with the operators and knowing every step that's involved in assembling an order or packing an order, or in their instance assembling a car door, for example. And so these have become a lot of work that we customers customizing pack stations so that they are absolutely perfectly designed for the process that they're doing, versus, oh, here's a table and you get the job done. And if I can take a few seconds out of an operation on a percentage point of view, that's might be a small percentage, but if I do that operation 1,000 times a day, now I've had an impact in the overall efficiency. So very inexpensive, but worth a big focus. And this has been an area that we've done a lot of work in. These are actually pack stations that were customized and delivered to Levi in both the US and Mexico, and they created a global standardization for this pack station. They developed what they felt was the best possible packing and ergonomic station, and then they made that the global standard for the organization. So don't underestimate the easy things that are available to you. And that concludes my piece of the presentation. I believe now I'll hand it back to Lucy. I believe that we will take some questions, and I think there is one more poll.
Yeah, hi Krish. So there's one last poll? No, one last one. So now that we've seen, now that we've talked about the Omni-Channel, we wanted to ask you how developed is the omni-channel in your company? And seeing the questions that have entered, we'll start with those. If you have any other questions, just go on and ask them. Because of the time, we'll only be able to respond a few of those, but we'll answer the other ones afterwards by mail. And if you want to discuss these topics, don't hesitate to write us. So the first question is from Peru. It's from a food company. How should they define when and what level or what type of automation do they need in their distribution center?
So that, yes, it's a great question. Look, I think the one thing that I should have also qualified, I showed a number of solutions and technologies, and they have to be applied with strict data analysis and a strict understanding of a very specific business. So the answer to your question is, I would recommend that you engage with an organization to really understand the data and the metrics of the activities that you're involved in, and because it's not the same for any business, it's different for every business. One business that's handling X number of units can require levels of automation because of their way they do business, versus another one which might have the same level of volume but different challenges, and it may not be applicable. So all of these systems are driven by data analysis and a deep understanding of the technologies. And so I would say engage with somebody to understand your processes.
Okay, thank you very much. The next question is from Colombia, from supermarkets. So how long should the payback be on when you automate a process?
Yeah, that's a great question also. It varies dramatically again, but it's typically many organizations, certainly in the US, are looking for anywhere between 12 and 24 months. Those are the types of ROI that they're looking for. There are businesses also that are between less than 4 years, perhaps, but not much beyond that.
Okay. So the next question is also from Colombia. We are a retail company and we are starting e-commerce in large scale. What would be your advice to be prepared?
Be very, very flexible in anything you set up. If you're taking some space, make sure that you can expand it. If you're building some shelving, make sure that you plan for expanding it. Make sure you plan to change it, because if you're setting up in e-commerce and it's new for you, whatever you predict is going to happen, I can pretty much guarantee that you won't get it right. And so you'll end up changing your operating parameters, and you should have to as well, because the key is the success of the internet business and the success of the generation of sales. It's not the fact that we as distribution professionals don't have to change our DC. So we're a service. We are service to the sales channel. So the key is making yourself flexible so that you can continue to provide the service that doesn't limit the growth of the e-commerce business.
Okay, thank you. The next question is from Mexico. So they're writing from a department store. In your experience, how strong is the pickup versus delivery in other countries like USA? So pickup in store versus delivery.
Yeah. So in my experience, it's still limited pickup in store. It was 24 months ago. It was a discipline that everybody thought was going to be the way forward. I will tell you that the most recent interactions and projects that we've been involved in actually are retailers that have tried it and have concluded that it is difficult for them to operate that model, and they are moving not necessarily back because they didn't move away from it entirely, but they are anticipating that their model moving forward will eventually be deliver from a DC. The challenges that they face are the customer, it's surprising, the customer doesn't come and pick it up. So they order it and then it sits in the store for for a week, and so it takes that expensive retail space, whether it's in the back room or somewhere, is you're waiting for the customer, so you become the customer's stock room. So that's a big challenge. And the other challenge that I've seen my customers face is the customer orders 2 items online. They go to they want to get it at the store, but the idea is that you fulfill it from that store. But those 2 items are not both available at that store because they don't carry all of the inventory in every store. So customer orders 2 items, one of those 2 is not in that store, so they have to do some kind of a store transfer to get it to that store, so that incurs some cost. So it's definitely it's a valid model, and I believe it needs to be available to the consumer, but it's not going to be, I don't see it being a model that eliminates the need for centralized distribution.
Okay, perfect. We'll just go on with the last 2 questions. As we ask for these questions, I'll put on the last poll to have a little bit of your insight on how satisfied are you by this webinar. So the first one is, what kind of innovations are being developed to manage all the returns that happen in the apparel e-commerce businesses? It's a question from Peru.
I'm sorry, Lucy, could you repeat the question? You broke up.
Yeah, sure. What kind of innovations are being developed to manage the returns in the apparel and e-commerce business?
Yeah,
all the
great.
Return processes.
Great question. Many of the innovations that I talked about are actually being applied to returns, and one of the technologies, the pouch technology that I talked about, is being used in a major European apparel retailer, specifically for returns. They specifically invested in that technology because of the speed in which they can get returns back into the sales channel. So as soon as they go into one of those bags, the return is available for a sale. And what they found with their business was that what was being returned is what's being ordered also, because they would do promotions. So on a particular, for a particular day or 2, they might be promoting a particular item. So the item that's coming back is also still on sale that same day. So that item was being turned very quickly. So their ability to make it available very fast was a real advantage to them. So all of the automation technologies that I talked about are at higher volumes are being deployed to deal with returns and get returns back into the sales channel as quickly as possible.
Okay, and so the last question for today would be, is there any advantage for sorting products with a hanging style sortation over sortation of boxes?
Yeah, I mean, different approaches. So that a box being a group of garments, and a hanging sorter generally handles individual garments. The advantages over hanging, the advantages of hanging over traditional flat sortation really relate. As I said, there are many. Speed, a hang sorter. If you consider a hang sorter versus a flat sorter, a hang sorter goes faster. So the speed, you're getting an increased speed. A hang sorter costs less money, so less investment, greater speed. And then compared to the box, the question about the box, presentation. A garment that's in a box or delivered to a store in a box often may have a crease in it, or may require a plastic bag over it to keep it from creasing, or it may require some additional service when it gets to the store. So the big, from a retail perspective, the big reason for taking products out of boxes and handling them hanging, and it revolves around getting them ready for the store-ready merchandise. So when the or consumer-ready merchandise, when the consumer receives it, when the store receives it, it's perfectly presented, and the store associate doesn't need to do anything to it. The customers that we deal with want their store associates selling merchandise. They don't want them replacing hangers, ironing, steaming, or taking off bags. They want them focused on selling. And so everything that they can do in a central DC to ensure that that store personnel person is focused on their consumer and not focused on cleaning up the garments and making them look well.
Okay, Krish, sorry. So that's it for today. Thank you very much, Krish. Thank you very much, everybody that attended our webinar today. As we were saying, if you have any other questions, just let us know in the chat. There is the email at which you can write us, and we'll just sign up for our next webinars. Thank you very much to everybody.
Thank you.